blues fans. Welcome to the next episode of This Week in the Blues. It's our weekly take on blues history. I'm your host, Jimbo Big Train Madsen, with the blues band Big Train and the Loco Motives. Got a good show for you today, so let's take a look and see what happened this week in blues history.
Chicago blues singer and bass player Aaron Burton was born on June 15th in 1938. In a long career as a sideman, he played with Freddie King, Albert Collins, and Junior Wells, and released several solo albums. His recorded work was nominated 4 times for a Blues Music Award. In 1978, Burton joined his brother, Larry, in Albert Collins' backing band, the Icebreakers, and performed on Collins' Grammy-nominated album, Ice Pickin'. On June 16th in 1980, The Blues Brothers premiered in Chicago, Illinois, where most of it was filmed. It was released nationally 4 days later. It features musical numbers by James Brown, Cab Calloway in his final feature film role, Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, Chaka Khan, Big Walter Horton, Pinetop Perkins, and John Lee Hooker. Now, other cameos include Steven Spielberg, Paul Reubens, who you know as Pee Wee Herman, Eagles guitarist Joe Walsh, and singer-songwriter Stephen Bishop. In 2020, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Tampa Red first recorded the blues standard Love with a Feeling on June 16th in 1938 in Chicago. Several blues artists have interpreted and recorded the song, and when Freddie King adapted it in 1961, it became his first single to appear in the record charts. Now, Tampa Red recorded Love with a Feeling as a mid-tempo 12-bar blues. Accompanying Red, who sang and played slide guitar, were Black Bob Hudson on piano and a bass player whose name was lost to time. One of the most popular of the classic blues singers of her time, Sara Martin, was born June 18th in 1884. She was billed as the famous Moanin' Mama. She began a successful recording career when she was signed by OK Records in 1922. She was among the most recorded of the classic blues singers and made numerous recordings, including a few under the names Margaret Johnson and Sally Roberts. Throughout the 1920s, she toured and recorded with such performers as Fats Waller, Clarence Williams, King Oliver, and Sylvester Weaver. St. Louis blues pioneer Herman Ace Wallace was born June 18th in 1925. One of the mainstays of the St. Louis blues scene, Wallace spent the 50s and 60s as a member of the influential local band Big George Brock and the House Rockers, and later in Detroit, where he played with John Lee Hooker and Earl Hooker. Although born in St. Louis when he was 3, Wallace's parents relocated to Indiana, where his father worked in the steel mills. 8 years later, the family returned to St. Louis, and at that time, Herman and his brother Calvin began to learn the mandolin and harmonica. Wallace took the name Ace, formed from the initials of his sister Anita and brothers Calvin and Edward, and formed his own band, Ace Wallace and the Trumps. Here's a bit of blues history for you. When the Levee Breaks was recorded on June 18th, 1929 in New York City by Kansas Joe McCoy and Memphis Minnie. Now, when they wrote and recorded When the Levee Breaks, the Great Mississippi Flood of 1927 was still fresh in people's memories. The flooding affected 26,000 square miles of the Mississippi Delta. Hundreds were killed and hundreds of thousands of residents were forced to evacuate. The event is the subject of several blues songs, including Backwater Blues by Bessie Smith, Mississippi Heavy Water Blues by Barbecue Bob, and Charlie Patton's High Water Everywhere, Parts 1 and 2. Blues duo Leroy Carr and Scrapper Blackwell recorded How Long Blues on June 19th, 1928. It is based on How Long Daddy, recorded in 1925 by Ida Cox and Papa Charlie Jackson. Now, the song became an early blues standard and its melody inspired many later songs. It was a massive hit in the pre-war blues era, a song that every blues singer and piano player had to know. In 1988, How Long Blues was inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame, and in 2012, the song received a Grammy Hall of Fame award. Swamp Blues harmonica great Lazy Lester was born on June 20th, 1933. Now, contrary to his colorful nickname, Lazy Lester swore he was never all that lazy. But he seldom was in much of a hurry either. Although the relentless pace of his recording schedule, including the Swamp Blues classics I'm a Lover and Not a Fighter and I Hear You Knockin', might contradict that statement. While growing up outside of Baton Rouge, he was influenced by Jimmy Reed and Little Walter. His entry into playing professionally arrived quite by accident. While riding on a bus sometime in the mid-50s, he met guitarist Lightning Slim, who was searching fruitlessly for an AWOL harpist. The two musician styles meshed seamlessly, and Lester became Slim's harp player of choice. Chicago blues musician Johnny Yard Dog Jones was born June 21st in 1941 on a cotton plantation in Crawfordsville, Arkansas. Influenced by Robert Johnson and T-Bone Walker, Jones stated that when he was in his early teens, he was given harmonica lessons by Little Walter. At the age of 18, he moved to Chicago and played in clubs and on the blues circuit for several decades before recording his debut album at the age of 55. He won a W.C. Handy Award in 1998. On June 21st in 1948, the Columbia label announced its new technological breakthrough with a long-playing vinyl phonograph record that can hold up to 23 music minutes on a side, which was unheard of. At the time when the LP was introduced, nearly all phonograph records for home use were made of an abrasive and therefore noisy shellac compound, employed a much larger groove, and played at approximately 78 revolutions per minute, limiting the playing time up to less than 5 minutes per side. Well, blues fans, we just covered some of the highlights here. Now, if you want to know more about these artists or the other things that happened this week in the blues, and there's a lot of them, be sure to follow our social media pages or just visit our website at bigtrainblues.com. We'll have a new episode next week, and we'll cover Delta blues musician T. Model Ford and blues guitar player Big Bill Brunzi. So hey, we'll see you then.